Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
Tonight on News Hour, ECOWAS delegation briefs President Tinubu on Niger crisis as AU announces suspension. Remains of pilots of crashed NAF MI-171 helicopter in Niger laid to rest. After 8 years, UK crime agency to charge Dizaani Alison Maduke charged with bribery offences. And on the foreign scene, Ethiopia to launch joint Saudi probe into alleged migrant killings by border guards. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Hour. I am Sumaya Abubakar. And now the details. President Bola Tinubu meets with some critical stakeholders on the ECOWAS intervention in the crisis in Niger Republic. The delegation headed by Nigerian former head of state, General Abubakar Abdulsalami, retired, was at the presidential villa to brief the president on the president's demand of the Niger coup junta. President Tinubu is chairman of the Authority of the Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS. The Niger's coup leader had proposed a 3-year transition of power after meeting a delegation of West African leaders and warned that any attack on the country will not be a walk in the park for those involved. Speaking to State House reporters after the meeting, General Abdulsalami, retired, said the meeting with the president formed part of efforts to see a way of settling the political crisis after the military overthrew the democratically elected president.
I must say that our visit to Niger has been very fruitful in that it has opened an avenue to start talking, and hopefully we will get somewhere.
That's wishes, sir.
Well, like I said, we started talking. We made their own points, and then I made my report to the chairman of the ECOWAS Heads of State and President. He will now consult with his colleagues, and then the ding-dong starts, and we'll get somewhere, hopefully. Hopefully, diplomacy will see the better of this thing. Nobody wants to go to war. It doesn't pay anybody. But then again, you know, our leaders have said, if all fails, and I don't think all will fail, we'll get somewhere. We'll get out of this mess.
The African Union on Tuesday suspended the membership of Niger Republic until civilian rule in the country is restored and will assess the implications of any armed intervention in the troubled Sahel nation. AU said the Peace and Security Council requests the AU Commission to undertake an assessment of the economic, social and security implications of deploying a standby force in Niger and report back to the Council following strong differences on the matter. The AU last week held a meeting on the crisis against a backdrop of divergent views within the bloc over any military intervention. The coup has heightened international worries over the Sahel with activities of the insurgents linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Niger is the fourth nation in West Africa since 2020 to suffer a coup following Burkina Faso, Guinea and Mali. Meanwhile, the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, has cautioned the economic community of West African states against military intervention in Niger Republic. The ECOWAS defense chiefs had on Thursday pledged readiness to participate in a standby force that would restore democracy in Niger after generals toppled and detained President Mohamed Bazoum. In a statement via X, formerly known as Twitter, El-Rufai said, as ECOWAS beats the drums of war, I recall the 1970s rock classic by Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, because a war within our sub-region is a war between brothers. Indeed, the people of Niger Republic are one and the same with those living in northern Nigeria. Nigeria's presidential guards, led by Abdurrahmani Tichani, toppled President Mohamed Bazoum on July 26, prompting ECOWAS to give the junta a 7-day ultimatum to reinstate the president or face sanctions, including the military action. Now, Professor Wale Aderemi is a professor of political science, Lagos State University. He joins us via Zoom to discuss the recent developments after the Niger coup. Now, Prof, what particularly strikes you about the latest developments in Niger? I mean, we see President Tinubu had met former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, on Tuesday, who, after his meeting with the ECOWAS chairman, said he is hopeful that the diplomacy will help resolve the political situation in Niger Republic without a recourse to the use of the military option. So do you see this happening?
Yeah, well, yes, I think there's still a great latitude for this to be resolved and get them peace. The truth of the matter, I assure you, is that nobody always into a war. ECOWAS is not, they're not keen, which will be, hopefully everybody's hoping that it should be resolved. And even the Nigerians, I'm sure they're still holding out peaceful resolutions on frame of, dialogue to at least improve and arrange that will war not necessary. So yes, I'm optimistic that we still have room to negotiate and to avert what will be the most undesirable.
All right, so remember General Abdulsalami had led an ECOWAS delegation to Niger over the weekend for what is termed, the final negotiations for a return of power to the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. So if those negotiations are termed final, is that not an ominous sign? What do you think? What do you take of that?
No, I mean, it's playing hardball. They're just playing hardball. You have to have this, these hard posturings, to at least make the junta take you seriously. So I'm not sure, anybody can say what the final, as long as the prospect for talking, for peace and dialogue, on the table, everybody's going to seize upon it. So they're going to say final so that the junta does not, get emboldened and then, get more assertive and brazen, and say, no, we're not. So ECOWAS, they're doing the right thing. They have to, make this very hard, belligerent posturings to make the junta take it seriously. So final does not necessarily, portend immediate conflict or war. No, but it only shows, the urgency that is required to once and for all put pay to this unacceptable coup.
Meanwhile, the African Union has now gone ahead to suspend Niger Republic until constitutional rule is restored in the country. There is already a set of ECOWAS sanctions in place, causing hardship for the people of Niger. Now, these are strong, armed tactics. How do you see the situation playing out?
Now, from reports we get, and this is the bit that really worries me, is the increasing externalization of the conflict. You see the PMCs, are getting more and more involved in the conflict, so to say, this impasse. Don't forget that Niger is located in the Sahel, which is a hotbed for terrorist activism. You have Prigozhin, and all these PMCs are there. You have Al Qaeda, ISIS. They're all there in the Sahel, and they are all lever for the junta to pull, against the West or the rest of the civilized world. So that's a bit that really worries me. I just recently, I think today or yesterday, we see Prigozhin making this post, that yes, he's in Niger, and dares anybody to attack the junta and all of that. So that is the bit that worries me, and that is why. The AU, even though the Security Council had resolved, to suspend Niger for, I think about a week now, they only made this announcement today, and they have warned Prigozhin to steer clear of Niger. So this is the bit, that worries me, because with the involvement of all these private military, you call them by their name, these mercenaries, it could embolden, the junta and give them the wrong signals. And make them resist dialogue and a peaceful resolution of the crisis. And that is why the AU and ECOWAS, and rightfully so, see Niger as one coup too many, and that will do what it takes, to stop this tidal wave of military takeovers. Now, what you say, and that is very correct, and that is one hope I think may hasten the resolution of this crisis, is that the sanctions on Niger, are biting very hard, very, very hard. The financial sanctions, closure of borders, no imports going in, of course, Nigeria cut electricity supply. So these are biting hard. And, but you see, the thing with sanctions is that it takes time, to really, really, force you to, surrender or, come, to resolution. But hopefully, the sanctions will eat in and we'll see a peaceful resolution. I still think, the prospects for peace, are very, bright. And I think that not the junta, not ECOWAS, not AU, are really keen on bloodshed or war. It's costly, and nobody really wants to go that route.
Okay, so, Prof, we heard General Abdul Salami described the meetings in Niger Republic as fruitful. Now, can you educate us on what these diplomatic terms mean in real terms?
Yeah, it's fruitful. It's always fruitful in diplomatic terms as long as, there's prospects to talk. As nobody's shutting down, okay, you're willing to... Remember, initially, the Nigerian junta, will not allow the ECOWAS, the UN, and, these peacekeeping forces to even come into Niger. But we'll see a de-escalation of, that face-off. Now we're talking, we're on the table, and as long as, the prospect for dialogue, is available, then it's hopeful. It's hopeful whether or not we reach a compromise, whether we break the ice or not, as long as both parties are willing to talk, to negotiate and to dialogue, then in diplomatic terms, it's still fruitful.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Wale Aderemi, a professor of political science at Lagos State University. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
All right, now moving on to more stories. The Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badr Abubakar, and the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Muhammad Matawalle, have promised remarkable changes in Nigeria's security architecture within 1 year. The new ministers stated this on Tuesday while addressing journalists on the occasion of the assumption of office at the Ship House, Ministry of Defense, Abuja, barely 24 hours after being sworn in as cabinet members. Badr assured the public that for the sake of the country, he and the Minister of State could not afford to betray the trust given to them by President Bola Tinubu. According to him, within a year, there will be remarkable changes for the better in the country's security situation. He also promised that he and Matawalle will do their best to meet the mandate of Tinubu, who, along with all Nigerians, are desperate to see that the nation's security is ensured. Matawalle gave an assurance that the ministry would spare no effort in building a strong defense apparatus capable of handling any threats. The Minister for Police Affairs, Ibrahim Gaidam, says that he has adopted new ideas and innovation to change the landscape of police ecosystem in the country, urging all members of staff in the ministry to key in. Gaidam, who disclosed this at the headquarters of the ministry, Abuja, on Tuesday, when he and the ministers of state, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, formally took over the affairs of the ministry, admitted that the challenge ahead is daunting but surmountable. He emphasized the importance of unity, collaboration, and cooperation to stem various challenges facing the nation in areas of maintaining law and order, safeguarding the rights of citizens, and upholding justice. He said through collective efforts, we could make Nigeria police force to be efficient, professional, and accountable to society, and thereby solicit unwavering cooperation and support in implementing the policies and programs for the police ecosystem. The Minister of State, Suleiman Ibrahim, pointed out that both ministers will work as a team to improve the welfare of the staff and committed to the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure the successful implementation of improved economy and security in the country. The remains of Flight Lieutenant Ibrahim Adamu Abubakar, pilot of the NAF MI-171 helicopter that crashed in Niger State, penultimate Monday, had been laid to rest after a funeral prayer in Zaria. The prayer at Haruna Danjuma Jumaat Mosque in Zaria, led by the chief imam of the mosque, Sheikh Mohammed Sani Gumi, which was well attended by family members and hundreds of mourners from all walks of life. A team of the Nigerian Air Force personnel who escorted the corpse also joined the prayers, including women relations of the deceased. Flight Lieutenant Ibrahim Adamu Abubakar died during a casualty evacuation mission when the helicopter crashed near Chukuba village in Niger State. Abubakar Adamu, an elder brother of the deceased, explained that the family had earlier performed a funeral prayer in absentia for the deceased when they could not receive the corpse of the late pilot. He said they concluded that they might not see the corpse of late Ibrahim. Therefore, the family decided to conduct a funeral prayer for the deceased in absentia, which was observed last Thursday as ordained by Islam. Adamu, however, stated that since the corpse had been discovered and released to the family, it became mandatory to perform another funeral prayer for the deceased.
Allahu Akbar.
Meanwhile, planned by the Niger State, Governor Umaru Bago to dialogue with bandits with a new view of ending attacks on farming communities in the state is generating mixed reactions among residents. The negotiation, according to the plan, will allow farmers engage in farming activities to stem the tide of rising cost of foodstuff. Abubakar Akoti reports.
We are challenged with insecurity because we have a lot of ungoverned spaces. It is our kind and humble thinking that we will start to discuss with these people in a view for them to understand that there is more to peace than in fighting.
The ravaging banditry and insurgency for close to a decade in the state had claimed scores of lives of farmers, travelers, and security operatives in Munya, Rafi, Paikoro, Shiroro, Mashegu, Mariga, Rijo, Kontogora, and Ushishi local government areas. Thousands of others had been abducted and millions of naira paid as ransom to bandits in the last 8 years, while many abductees are still in captivity. Many of these villagers are also still living as internally displaced persons with little or no humanitarian support, and many others are suffering from mental health challenges due to trauma. Dozens of children are also out of school. This, among other challenges faced by the victims, prompted the governor's plan to dialogue with bandits.
I understand with the governor thinking that now he can go and negotiate with the bandits, but I want him to also reflect on the results of the negotiation the Zamfara state government had with bandits, the negotiation the Katsina state had with bandits, and the result of the negotiation some other states had with bandits.
And one of such incidences was the fact that there was a woman who was having a little baby, and the baby was just 1.5 years. When the bandits came, they carried the woman and this baby, and when they got into the bush, they eventually saw that the baby was going to become some form of problem to them, especially to the mother. So they collected the baby and threw the baby on, in the bush, and went with the mother. Before the mother could be released and before she would return, the child was already dead. He died of kwashiorkor. So how will such a woman receive this message of dialogue with the bandits?
Residents want attention paid to the victims, while security operatives are well equipped with modern technologies to enable them to confront the attackers effectively. Abubakar Akote, Trust TV News, Minna.
Armed bandits have reportedly abducted a housewife, Aisha Suleiman, and her 12-year-old daughter, Khadija Mahmood, in Damban area of Gusau, the Zamfara state. The husband and father of the victim, Saliu Isa, confirmed the incident. He narrated that the suspected armed bandits stormed the residence of his father-in-law at about midnight, bearing deadly weapons, and forced their way into the residence, where they first seized the mobile phones of those who were in the house at the time in the Damban area of Gusau. The armed bandits thereafter whisked away Aisha Suleiman, who is a staff of Damban Government Hospital, and her daughter Khadija Mahmood to an unknown destination. The husband disclosed that the abductors contacted him and are demanding 50 million naira as ransom, and if he failed to produce it, they will sell off the victims to another group of armed bandits. He said they are in talk with the abductors to get them to reduce the ransom and to ensure the safe return of the victims. When asked whether they informed the security agencies, Isa said those who were around alerted the police about the incident. He wants the security agencies to beef up security within the area to protect citizens against the armed bandits in the state. Police Public Relations Officer of the Zamfara State Command Assistant Superintendent Yazid Abubakar did not respond to calls put across to him. Security troops of Operations Hakorin Damisa 4 have arrested 39 criminal suspects in connecting with banditry, kidnapping, and armed robbery. The troops also recovered arms, ammunition, and hard drugs. According to the Media and Information Officer of the operation, Captain Oya James, in a statement on Tuesday, said the suspects were arrested at different locations within the joint operation area of Operation Safe Haven and 3 Division of Nigerian Army Area of Responsibility. Captain James further explained that the troops recovered an AK-47 rifle, 1 pump-action magnum gun, an AK-47 magazine, 14 rounds of 7.62 mm special, and an ITEL mobile phone from the suspect. A suspected kidnapper and arms dealer was also captured at Kuba Village in Bokos, local government area of Plateau State. The statement said the troops arrested 2 militia gang members identified to be among those who attacked Haipang General area recently, and recovered 2 AK-47 rifles, 7 fabricated rifles, and 4 pump-action cartridges during the operations. A drug syndicate operating in Basa local government area was also nabbed during a sting operation, and 7 drug peddlers arrested with a large cache of drugs. Captain James said the troops arrested a total of 307 cows for grazing on farmlands belonging to locals at Kuba Community and Mabel Village of Mangu and Bokos local government areas. The media officer, however, said OPSH remain committed to bringing lasting peace in the state and ensure lives and properties are protected. Now, there was a tension in Tudunwada community of Shandam local government area of Plateau State on Tuesday morning when a bulldozer arrived for planned demolition of houses in the area. A team of police officers and mobile policemen also arrived the community in Hilos buses. Ado Musa completes the report.
Tear gas was used by the police officers to disperse the angry protesters. Men, women and children were seen protesting when they saw the police officers and the bulldozer in the community. The community decried seizure of their land and houses, a situation that led the Inspector General of Police to order the State Commissioner of Police to investigate the matter. The community accused the former Commissioner for Land and Survey, Festus Fonter, of championing the exercise, an allegation that the former commissioner said was a case between Fonter family and 3 others, which he claimed that a court in the state had granted them the ownership of the land. But the community denied this claim. We were at home this morning when we saw police officers arrive the community in their numbers. Some minutes after, an excavator was brought and uploaded from a trailer. The situation was shocking. This land belongs to my father. He owns the land for the past 60 years. We built our houses for many years. Nobody claimed the land until now. We are not going anywhere. We were taken unaware today in our community. I was in the market when news came to me that police had come to demolish our houses. I have to rush to the house to see what was happening. When I arrived the community, I saw women and children crying. The entire community was thrown into confusion. This is not the first time they are coming. The spokesperson of the State Police Command, DSP Alabo Alfred, is yet to comment on the development. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
A senior lawyer and prosecutor with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, Rotimi Jacobs' son, has joined the call for the release of the suspended EFCC chairman, Abdurrashid Bawa. Bawa has been detained since June 14th and remained in the custody of the security agency. In a statement, the senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, cited relevant provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, bordering on remand order, to show that the continued detention of Bawa could no longer be justified in law. According to Jacobs, the maximum period in which a suspect can be detained in Nigeria through a remand order is 56 days, but Bawa has been in detention for 68 days, contrary to the rule of law. Jacobs say that this must be condemned by all lovers of democracy. The senior lawyer's call comes after human rights lawyer Femi Falana made similar calls for Bawa's release in the absence of formal charges. Former Petroleum Resources Minister Dizzani Alison Madueke has been charged with bribery offences relating to her time as Nigeria's oil minister, the United Kingdom National Crime Agency, NCA, said on Tuesday. Alison Madueke, 63, has been on bail since first being arrested in London in October 2015. She will appear in court in the British capital on October 2nd, the NCA said. Alison Madueke was the first woman to be oil minister in Nigeria and the first female president of the global oil cartel OPEC. The NCA said Alison Madueke allegedly benefited from at least £100,000, that's about $127,000 in cash, chauffeur-driven cars, flights on private jets, luxury holidays for her family, and the use of multiple London properties. The charges also detail financial rewards including furniture, renovation work and staff for the properties, payments of private school fees and gifts from top designer shops such as Cartier Jewelry and Louis Vuitton goods. Alison Madueke has been living in the upmarket St. John's Wood area of North London since she was first arrested and undergone chemotherapy for breast cancer, according to her family. At the time of her arrest, the NCA said that only it had detained five people in London on suspicion of international corruption without naming those held. The NCA said that assets worth millions of pounds in relation to the case have been frozen as part of the investigation. You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up, what to do with subsidy palliatives in the States. This and more after the break. Stay with us.
Residents of the Federal Capital Territory are hereby alerted to the activities of scavengers, also known as Babambula, which security agencies have identified as a high-level security threat to not only the residents but also to our infrastructure as they perpetrate petty stealing and acts of vandalism on public utilities. More so, they are drug peddlers, serve as spies to terrorist elements, and are ready-made tools for the public disturbances during which they attack people with dangerous weapons. The Federal Capital Territory Administration therefore reiterates that the ban on scavengers, aka Babambula, operating within the Federal Capital City is still in force. These miscreants are advised to stay off the streets of the Federal Capital City for their own good, as defaulters will be apprehended and prosecuted, including parents of underage children involved in these practices. Relevant agencies are carrying out enforcement of this ban as stipulated. Be law-abiding always. Let's together build the FCT of our dreams. Management announcer.
It was never a consensus. We did all our best. You see, in politics, you give your contribution to the best of your ability.
If you want, I'll forward to you this statement. You go to this bank and verify. Do. I'm
But there are people who say not spending money is not about you in itself.
Let me finish.
But there's so much to be done.
Let me finish. Now, you don't allow me to explain myself.
The recent development shows abductions are now a factor of informants embedded in community.
It's not about the people of Katsina to say that, no, during my administration I was able to stop insecurity. No. It's about collective responsibility for all of us.
And what we should ask ourselves is not what has been seen, is the life better? Are there more people who are unemployed who have not become employed? Is the level of corruption has gone down? Is there inclusion? All those issues.
We're actually a gas country with associated oil. Our focus has always been on oil, that we have never paid significant attention to gas.
To do it effectively, we need to have honest conversation with ourselves. Government needs to come down from its high horse and communicate with the people and build trust.
There must be a solution. We cannot continue this way. They must come back to the table and agree. So whose child will do deny education? All these children that sit for jam, they want to go to higher institutions.
But just a short while ago you were saying that why bring 10 children when you cannot cater for them? So why bring more universities when you cannot cater for the existing?
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is News Hour on Trust TV. Here is a recap of our top stories. ECOWAS delegation briefs President Tinubu on Niger crisis as AU announces suspension. And remains of pilots of crashed NAF MI-171 helicopter in Niger laid to rest. Now moving on to more stories. As the Tinubu administration gradually settles down to work, Nigerians have high expectations that the rough times they are currently experiencing will give way to comfort. Special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, is ensuring Nigerians and assuring them that the present adversities will eventually transform into benefits. Kehinde Amodu reports.
The harsh economic environment has blinded Nigerians to the fact that all presidential candidates had agreed that Nigeria could not afford to keep on fuel subsidy. Some actions taken by the previous administration also had far-reaching implications on present-day realities.
He was very clear with Nigerians, as were the other presidential candidates on this issue, that there was going to be the implementation of the full removal of the fuel subsidy. Everybody was in agreement that that was in the interest of the nation, even as it was going to bring short-term pain.
There was no way you were going to avoid forex volatility, as it were. If you just printed 22, 23 trillion naira pumped into the system with nothing to back it by way of ways and means, which was what happened under the previous regime. There is no way you will pump all of those and not expect prices, inflation, and exchange rates to give way.
The Tinubu administration has already taken steps to remedy the situation.
We've seen a dramatic decline. Daily Trust reported it, dramatic decline in the parallel market as it relates to the value of the dollar in the parallel market, and of course the rise in the value of the naira against the dollar in the parallel market. These are not accidents. These are direct outcomes of the interventions made by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Nigerians can expect more relief to come in the days ahead.
I believe that the central bank is doing its utmost and probably expecting naira stability in the days ahead, trying to make the best of a bad situation, as it were.
Government does acknowledge that the burden on the people, especially the removal of subsidy, has profoundly affected the Nigerian cost of living.
The pump price for PMS in our West African neighbors is significantly higher, in some countries even double what the current Nigerian pump price is. Even as we agree on that fundamental reality, you also recognize the shock value of increasing fuel price from where it was to where it is today. And we are promising our people that it will not be for nothing.
With a new cabinet in place, Decision-making will revolve around a larger set of professionals, some of whom are connected to their people. It is expected that the volume of shock decisions will lessen and allow government to stabilize. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News.
President Bola Tinubu directs the commencement of 90-day pre-retirement leave for the Director General, CEO of the National Identity Management Commission, the NIMC, Engineer Aliyu Abubakar Aziz, with effect from August 24, 2023, leading to his eventual retirement from service on November 24, 2023. This was contained in a statement signed by Ajuri Ngalale, the special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. The President approves the appointment of Engineer Bisoye Koka Odusote to serve as the Acting Director General, CEO of the National Identity Management Commission for a 90-day period with effect from August 24, 2023, after which a full term of 4 years will begin as the substantive NIMC Director General, CEO, beginning on November 24, 2023. Furthermore, President Tinubu approved the appointment of Honorable Yusuf Buba Yakub to serve as the Director, CEO of the Directorate of Technical Aid Corps, the DTAC. This following the recent expiration of tenure of the former DTAC Director, CEO Pius Osunyekami. This appointment takes immediate effect. The Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, the MDCAN, has issued a 21-day ultimatum to the federal government to implement the upward review of the Consolidated Medical Salary Structure, the CONMES, and other demands. In a communique issued on Monday after its National Executive Council meeting, the association said it could no longer guarantee the present relative industrial harmony within the public hospitals and medical schools if the issues were not satisfactorily resolved. The communique was signed by the president of the association, Victor Makanjuola, and the Secretary General, Yemi Raji. The association said it observed with dismay the non-implementation of the jointly agreed upward review of CONMES and the introduction of accoutrement allowance with the Nigerian Medical Association, the NMA. The MDCAN also demanded the immediate implementation of the upward review of age retirement to 70 years for consultants and 65 years for other health workers as an immediate measure to bridge the ongoing massive brain drain. It called on the government to, as a matter of urgency, resolve all the contending issues with the National Association of Resident Doctors and also ensure the safety of the MDCAN members and other Nigerians while effecting the immediate and safe release of those currently held captive by kidnappers. Residents of Yanagwa, the Bayelsa state capital, have expressed mixed feelings over the 5 billion naira given to the state to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal, saying the money should be used for that purpose and not divert the money for personal use. Others said the money should be put into projects that will benefit everyone instead of sharing peanuts to the people. A human rights activist, David West, said the state government should utilize the money for the purpose it was given for. However, a renowned environmental activist, Maurice Alagua, said the 5 billion naira should be invested in projects that people will benefit from, like marine transport system and the power sector in the state.
If the government receives the 5 billion, the purpose for which the 5 billion naira was voted for should be what expressly or explicitly it should be used for. Let us not hear that it was used to give to so people or it was used for one project to complete. No, we don't want to hear that. This is subsidy removal palliative grants given to the state. And not also forget, the state is going to pay about 32% or something thereabout of this same money.
Yesterday, I heard that the Bayelsa state government has, as a result of this 5 billion naira, increased or augmented the salary or allowances of civil servants, maybe the local government and state civil servants. That is not bad, but you know that Bayelsa state is not made up of only civil servants. What is the percentage of civil servants compared to the entire population of Bayelsa State.
The duo, however, said that there is no information on whether the state has received the money or not. Now, away from that story, Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has provided palliatives for 300,000 households in supplementing the efforts of the federal government to aid 100,000 households. Zulum made the announcement on Tuesday as he began distributing palliatives to disadvantaged homes on behalf of the federal government. He explained that Borno's case is peculiar since returnees still did not have full access to the farmlands after some parts had been destroyed by the insurgency. Zulum said that every home in rural parts of the local government areas hit by the insurgency will benefit, noting that 2,000 vulnerable people would be chosen in each ward for the palliative, notably in metropolitan places like the Maiduguri. Meanwhile, residents of Osun State have faulted the federal government for sending bags of rice to states and also to cushion the effect of economic hardship caused by the fuel subsidy removal. They appealed to federal government to use the money recovered for the fuel subsidy removal to build refineries rather than sharing rice among Nigerians. Hamid Oyebade files the report.
The current economic hardship in Nigeria has subjected many people in the country to hunger and suffering. In a bid to cushion the effect of the economic hardship, the federal government sent bags of rice to state governments for distribution to the poor. But for Remi Adekunle and Fele Asho, sharing rice cannot be the solution to the hardship and suffering in the country.
So they should help us to build the refineries. They should not share the food for us. We don't need their food. What we need from them is to use the money to build the refineries for us so that the price of the petrol will go down. Everybody will benefit from that one.
You guys cannot serve as adequate palliative for Nigerians. Nigerians are so hungry more than all this rice distribution. How many bags of rice have given to the states? How many bags of rice will the state distribute to each family?
Keeping that rice is just a mere wasting of time. We saw what happened during the NSAS. Some palliative were given to state government. They kept it. A lot of them got spoiled.
The total number of rice allocated to Osun State happened to be 3,050 kg rice. And out of which we have received 2,400 so far.
The residents advised both the federal and state government to devise strategies to stabilize the economy for the betterment of all Nigerians. Hamid Oyebade, Trust TV News, Osogbo.
The federal government says it is taking up the responsibility of entrenching an orientation of provisions in the national guideline on self-care for productivity or reproductivity and maternal health to achieve optimum outcomes, especially among populations in the communities. The government, through the Ministry of Health, said this is a step in the right direction following the benefits of exploring self-care commodities by empowering beneficiaries and its resultant reduction in burdens on the health facilities. The report.
Statistics from the World Health Organization states that Nigeria has an estimated maternal mortality ratio of 917 deaths per 1,000 live births, making it the fourth highest globally. But experts in sexual, reproductive and maternal health say promotion of safe use of reproductive self-care commodities will reduce the country's maternal mortality rates.
The guideline for Nigeria is focusing on sexual and reproductive health. So first of all, contraception and family planning. And for us in Nigeria, the inroad is the self-injection of Cyanapress. So that is what we are using as an inroad to ensure that this policy is implemented. But apart from that, we also have the HPV self-testing, that is the screening for cervical cancer, because we know that it is also very common among women and it is preventable. You know, so instead of a woman to go to the hospital for a pap smear, there's a pack that she can actually use to screen herself. We also have the HIV self-testing.
We've gone to 23 states. We've worked with them and helped them, to see which are the critical areas that they can start with. in terms of implementation and look, because the guideline also has a section, costed implementation plan. So they work on this with our help and they are guided. And of course, you know, various states have different strengths and depending on who is in charge and so on.
Adopting modern practices and self-care intervention for sexual, reproductive and maternal health are said to have some dangers without proper orientation, like every other medical commodity, but there is the need to have a first contact with the healthcare system.
On a general sense, there are self-care interventions that have been listed in the guideline, and those are the ones that are within the framework of self-care that people can use after they have had appropriate contact with the health facility.
Some of the products are available in the health facilities. Some you can get over the counter, you know, and then of course you'd have had contact with the health system so that your awareness and sensitization is increased, and you know how to ask questions. You know that when there's a problem, they would have given you, things to look out for. You can go back to the health facility.
The initiative, according to experts, is not only aimed at improving self-care practices, but also to reduce child and maternal deaths, infertility, cases of sexually transmitted diseases and infections, improve family planning practices by leveraging the availability and affordability of modern technology in sexual, reproductive and maternal health practices, with or without the help of a healthcare provider. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Over 20 journalists and activists in Kano received training on digital rights and online security by the Center for Information Technology and Development, the CTAD. The two-day training exercise brainstormed on the concept of human rights in the digital space as well as data privacy and protection in Nigeria. Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports.
In collaboration with Lawyers Without Borders and supported by the European Union, the two-day training aims at focusing on digital rights, protection mechanism and online security tools among journalists and digital rights activists in Kano State. According to CTAD, the idea is to empower these participants with the necessary knowledge of e-rights, among other important aspects of online security.
The government has proposed two major policies. The broadband plan, digital economy policy. Most of this require intensive use of digital skills. And if we don't feel safe online, we will not use that skills.
Drawn from various media organizations and civil society groups, these activists will further be informed on the internet and how it works, legal instruments and provisions for enjoyment of digital rights, as well as understanding digital citizenship.
The internet is critical, and not just internet, but the digital sphere is critical right now for everything that we do, affecting the way we interact. We know that young people are able to now galvanize, mobilize, on the internet, using digital platforms to be able to make demands on the elected officials, the government, to also hold them accountable.
For the Nigeria Union of Journalists, the internet has so far brought with it so much development for practicing journalists, but also required careful approach on how to use it or obtain information from it.
The digital space has come to stay, and we journalists with media convergence, virtually every serious media organization has a social media handle, which tells you that you have got a lot to do. And with this workshop on the digital rights or online rights, this will equip you to protect yourself against digital threats, as well as guide you on how to handle your work appropriately.
Within the next 2 days, these journalists and activists will understand the concept of digital rights and how to exercise their digital rights, among others. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
You're still watching News Hour on Trust TV. The news will return shortly. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, says President Bola Tinubu is very passionate about empowering micro, small and medium enterprises for the development of the nation's economy. The Vice President said this when he spoke with journalists during his tour of exhibition stands at the BRICS Trade Fair. The Vice President commended the organizers of the trade fair, which had about 180 exhibitors from various sectors of the economy. He stressed that the exhibitions will in the long run serve the purpose of galvanizing investments and trade in the continent. Vice President Shettima, who took time to inspect Nigerians' exhibitions, lauded the investment of Nigerians in South Africa. While praising Rosebank, a Nigerian investment outfit in South Africa, for the funding of a cassava project worth 40 billion naira, the Vice President affirmed that it is a game changer with the cassava value chain with its huge economic benefits. We hope that it will be reflected in other parts of the country. The trade fair is being organized by the BRICS South Africa and the SA BRICS Business Council in collaboration with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition on the sideline of the ongoing 15th BRICS Summit. The exhibition is expected to serve as a platform for showcasing products and services from the BRICS countries, as well as business-to-business interaction aimed at increasing inter-BRICS trade and investment. The Vice President was accompanied to the trade fair by Nigeria's High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador Mohammed Haruna Manta, the Consul General, Ambassador Andrew Edie, and other senior government officials. Now let's join Chairman Debeng for more business news.
In July 2023, the average price of premium motor spirit or PMS increased year-over-year by 215.95% from the 190 naira reported in the same period of 2022 to 600 naira 35 kobo per litre. Additionally, this occurs at a time when the average retail price of automotive gas oil diesel climbed year-over-year by 2.6% from 774 naira 38 kobo per litre in July 2022 to 794 naira 48 kobo per litre in July 2023. Retail prices for gasoline climbed by 9.99% month-over-month to 600 naira 35 kobo in July 2023 from 545 naira 83 kobo in June 2023, while diesel prices declined by 2.62% month-over-month to 794 naira 48 kobo in July 2023 from 815 naira 83 kobo in June 2023. The Northeast Zone had the highest price for PMS, which was 630 naira 13 kobo per litre, while the North Central Zone had the lowest price, which was 551 naira 58 kobo, according to the zonal representation of the average price of PMS. When compared to other zones, the North Central Zone has the highest average price for automotive gas oil diesel at 863 naira 10 kobo, while the Southwest Zone has the lowest price at 759 naira 45 kobo per litre. According to JP Morgan, an American multinational financial service company, Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves will be about $3.7 billion by the end of 2023. This information was provided by the bank in its most recent report on Nigeria reform pause rather than fatigue. In addition, the research forecast that overall inflation would increase to 28% by the end of the year due to increased food costs and other effects of President Bola Tinubu's policies. JP Morgan pointed out that greater currency swaps and borrowings against the FX reserve are to blame for the lower than reported FX reserve. That's all for business news. I am Chamun Dabeng.
On the international scene, Ethiopia will launch a joint investigation with Riyadh into a Human Rights Watch report that accused Saudi border guards of killing hundreds of Ethiopian migrants trying to enter the Gulf Kingdom. The country's foreign ministry said on Tuesday that the government of Ethiopia will promptly investigate the incident in tandem with the Saudi authorities a day after the publication of the HRW report sparked global outrage. The allegations, described as unfounded by a Saudi government source, point to surge in abuses along the perilous route from the Horn of Africa to Saudi Arabia, where hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians live and work. A 20-year-old woman from Ethiopia's Oromia region, interviewed by HRW, said Saudi border guards opened fire on a group of migrants they had just released from custody. Washington, a longtime ally of Riyadh, urged a thorough and transparent investigation into the allegations, which were dismissed by a Saudi government source who spoke to AFP. United Nations spokesman Stephen Dujarric called the reports very concerning, but noted the serious allegations were difficult to verify. The New York-based rights group has documented abuses against Ethiopian migrants in Saudi Arabia and Yemen for nearly a decade. And finally, in sports, Napoli were absolutely outstanding last season under the tutelage of Luciano Spalletti, winning 28 matches and losing just 4 games in the run-up to their Scudetto win last season. They were also impressive in the Champions League, reaching the quarterfinals of the competition for the first time in their history. Osimhen had a big hand in their successes, scoring 31 goals in all competitions to give them the extra push. However, this summer, the Parthenopians have lost some of their best hands, with coach Spalletti leaving for sabbatical immediately after the season. Spalletti later accepted the coaching job in the Italian national team, which prompted AC Milan to appoint Rudi Garcia as their new coach. Though defensive stalwart Kim Min-jae has joined German Kings Bayern Munich, the club have managed to hold on to important players like Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen and Zambo Anguissa. Nonetheless, the former AC Milan striker Cassano says Napoli will struggle to reach the high heights that they did last season. And with that, we have come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Thanks for watching.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.